All right. What's up, citizen? Welcome to another episode of Citizen Ready. As always, I'm your host, Brett. And today I'm joined by a gentleman who I've actually not ever had the pleasure of talking with, but I've been familiar with his work since COVID times. And I know when I hear this sound, dun-dun-dun-dun, dun-dun-dun, dun-dun-dun-dun, dun-dun-dun, that I'm going to get the truth, so I better pay attention. But I'm joined today by the one and only Greg Reese. Thank you, sir. How are you?
I'm good. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. I appreciate you being here. I've been a viewer and a fan of your work. You seem to always hit the nail on the head early. So I'm very interested and appreciate this conversation.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's nice to hear. Early. I don't think I've ever broken a story, but what I try to do is I try to pick a subject that's important for everyone to hear, or at least for someone to hear. That's the best I try to do, and I guess that has a lot to do with what my own experience too. So
yeah, how do you? That's a great question. Typically I just kind of ask origin real quick, who you are, where you're from, how you got into doing what you're doing. But then I'd also really like to know how do you pick your stories? Because when I say early, I mean, maybe it's not breaking a story like journalism or something you discovered, like the Watergate scandal or something, but your attention, you focus people's attention early on something that is either taking place or that they need to think about or consider, whether it's a situation coming down the pipe or a situation that they're already in. So yeah, can you just give us a little background, and then how do you find your stories and
yeah. I don't know. I guess the quick version would be that based on the experiences I've had in my life, from the very beginning, from my earliest memories, I was well aware that I was well aware of the nature of this place that we live in. And I knew that the surface mask that we were being shown was a lie. That was always known. There was no questioning that.
What was like the first thing? Something had to tip you, right? Like in school, in high school,
a lot of people get maybe a little uncomfortable when they hear stuff like this. No reason to.
Whatever.
Because it was part of my experience, and I've gone through it all. And I'm not angry at all about it. I've accepted it all. But at the age of 5, I was brought into what you could say ritual abuse at the Jesuit house in Toronto. My uncle was graduating as a Jesuit. He was a young man. I believe he was completely oblivious to this whole thing that happened. I was invited to spend the night in the dormitory where all the priests sleep. This is in 75, and
oh man,
for some strange reason. That was acceptable. And while my family was in the hotel across the street, I was in the Jesuit house. And then the story was I sleptwalked out of the room. I was gone for a couple hours. But I always kind of remembered this. I put this all together in 36 through meditation and prayer and just learning how to calm the body down, relax the body, and then you could start. But what was very interesting about this experience was that I always remembered it. The mind is incredibly powerful. It's like, for example, right after this experience, I would talk about it all the time to my close friends, and I would describe it as, I would say it was a dream, and I would say it was the strangest dream I've ever had because it seemed so real. And I kept saying, I would say it over and over again. It seemed so real. It was the weirdest dream, and I would have dreams about this, so it was not like I forgot about it. It was as if I believe there was drugs involved in some type of hypnosis to make me think it was a dream. But basically, the situation was I was surrounded by adults wearing black robes. I was in it was a basement. It was wet. It was dank. It was dark.
Wow.
There was a body on a slab in front of me, and it was a woman. She was unconscious. She appeared to be nude, but with a black blanket covering her body. And I was being handed a blade, and I was being told I need to save this woman's life by sticking this knife into her. And I really didn't want to do that. but I also really didn't want to disappoint any of these people for some reason. I'm kind of always going to people please.
You're a
I remember,
kid.
I
Kids,
clearly, like it was yesterday, I still remember like pretending to do it, just kind of like pretending to poke. And then I remember like looking at him side-eyed, kind of like, am I fooling anybody? And then that's what really, like this story is actually not that bad compared to most people that have had ritual abuse. This is all just a mind screw, a mind, because that's where it ended. And basically the room was extremely disappointed with me. It was sort of this weird, heavy disappointment that followed me for many years and kind of led me into lots of drug abuse and sexual promiscuity, just simply to find moments of pleasure to get out of my head is really what it was all about. And then it was learning how to, all these videos I've been doing lately are about becoming more self-aware of your head. And that's really what got me out of this. Many years of practicing that, of learning how to put it all together so that I wasn't being haunted by it anymore, so that I could sort of liberate myself. Not sort of. In 2017, I successfully liberated myself from my mind, which might sound like no big deal, but for me it was tremendous because
that's huge.
At the time I was 47 years old and a grown adult man whose life has been really colored by this situation that happened when I was a kid. And then right after I was able to find this peace of mind, it was 2018. That's when I started my work at InfoWars.
Yeah.
And that's right before COVID. And during COVID, I could die right now and I'd be a happy man. And on my deathbed, I'd be talking about how I've had more than one person tell me that thanks to my reporting, they did not take the vaccine. I don't know if that's true or not. Doesn't matter. Just the fact that I had a voice during that time. And more than that, because of my childhood, because of the life that I've had, that I just described basically. Well, that all happened when I was 5. But because of that, not just did I get into drugs and sex, I began to question everything. That became my new favorite thing. And it drove my family crazy. My mother, God bless her soul, my mother didn't mind it at all, but the rest of my family really got triggered. So I'm very used to people getting triggered when you question the story. That's normal to me. And I find that very strange as well. I find it very strange the amount of faith that we put into a system that with just a little bit of research, you'll find that you should really put no faith into this system at all, You should try to survive. That's, surviving is a good thing. But so anyways, that's basically the short version of my story. And
that's incredible. I had no idea.
To be able to do the Reese report because I actually have a place in this world now where I feel like I can do some good. And whereas for most of my adult life and most of my young life, I was sort of considered a weirdo or a crazy person or paranoid or, what have you, all these things. So.
Wow. I had no idea, man. That's incredible. Thank you for sharing that. That's like, well, let me just, there's a couple things I want to say. One, I meant what I said about hearing that sound, and through COVID is when I did get familiar with your videos, and I attribute much of my I was very resistant from shots because I was in the military, and I remember going through the boot camp line, getting all the shots in the Marines, and they're screaming at you, and then you sat down in this room, a medical room, and it was air conditioned and it was quiet, and I remember just sitting there thinking like, what are we doing? Like, this doesn't make any sense. It doesn't fit. And then dude fishbowls next to me, and he's frothing, and he's fucking shaking, and they come in and snatch him and take him out. And I realized that, they're waiting for us to die. They're seeing if all that whole line of shots, because they had the gun, and they stuck you in the butt, and they stuck you in the thigh. I was in the Marine Corps too, Semper Fi, brother. That's exactly Paris Island. So,
what year are you talking about? What year-ish?
I went 96. I was in boot camp in 90. I graduated high school in 96.
I was in 90 to 93. I got out in 93. I was in 96 Marines. And I do remember not a lot of shots. I don't remember a lot of shots, but I do remember.
You remember the gun? Did you guys have the
gun? Yeah, we got the gun. When we went to Japan for 6 months, we got a few shots before we went to Japan. And Okinawa. And when we were in Okinawa, I do remember we were there for 6 months and still love Japan. And while we were there, we had a formation, and the doctors were there, and our platoon sergeant was there. And the doctor said, well, we have a new experimental vaccine that we're doing for something. It had something to do with some Japanese thing.
Anthrax.
Something. It was something that nobody wanted, and everybody was like, "We don't. Nobody wants this." And then the doctor said, "It's voluntary though, but we would appreciate it." And then the doctor walked away. And then as the doctor walked away, our platoon sergeant said, "It's not voluntary. You're all getting it." And we're like, and that was you know how it's like, and that's the way it is in the Marine Corps. So everyone kind of ate shit that day. I don't think anyone was happy about it. And I'm sure that would have been back in '92 when that happened. And I'm sure during the COVID times, a lot of my friends that were there with me and all those Marines, I'm sure everyone, I mean, there's a lot of situations like that. I still am amazed at how healthy my body is. I think the human body is extremely resilient. I think they work, Dr. Lee Merritt, I interviewed her a couple times, and she's of the mind that all these institutions that are studying this stuff, all they're doing is they're trying to figure out how to kill humans in the most efficient way. And I think
that's right.
I agree with her.
I mean, it was in the X-Files. I actually watched that clip this morning. They put together a couple clips. You can watch it on Twitter. I think I even reshared it on Galileo Sat app. You can see it. But it's the X-Files where they talk about, Mulder and Scully, whatever. They talk about how, what are you saying? They're injecting people with a way to take away the genome and destroy their immune system? Why would they do that? How would they get to do that? And then she's like, well, maybe we gave them control and let them inject it into us. And then they talk about through the smallpox virus, they injected a secret tea that turns off people's thing and blah, blah, blah. It's like, they've been telling us for years. I mean, it's,
And you don't need anything either. Like, I feel very good about that. Like, I remember, like, I grew up not liking to go to the doctor, not liking to go to the dentist. I've always been like that. And I've come to accept it, that the fact that it's because I'm crazy. That's how I've accepted that until 2020. In 2020, all of a sudden I realized, Greg, you weren't crazy at all. Like, that's just the way it is. But what I'm amazed at is just it's strange for me to see that a person can't find humility and faith in something bigger than us, because just the miracle of the human body alone, like how, for example, after COVID, 2021, 2022 kind of wrecked me, broke me a bit, and emotionally, and took me like a year and a half, a couple of years to start getting back. I'm actually still in the process of getting back.
Because of COVID, you mean? Because of everything that we've been through?
InfoWars, because I was a bit brokenhearted about the whole thing that InfoWars when I quit, and
you're welcome to talk. I don't know what happened there. I know that you're not on there anymore, but I mean, that's up to you. We don't have to get into it.
I don't have any inside information. I just know what anyone else would know, which is that it's now state-run media, obviously. If you can't,
I mean, that's what Owen says.
Does he say that too? I mean,
he's best basically
through a lot more than I did. Like I probably quit a year before he did. But
I mean, you were interviewed by Alex. I've seen you on there. You were a host of an hour.
And I got nothing bad to say about Alex. Alex was actually the best boss I ever had, because I pretty much can't stand any boss. I've had a lot of jobs. It would be difficult for me to sit down and tell you all the bosses I've had, but all the jobs I've had. But I do know that I never liked a boss. You don't get a job for the boss. You get a job for the money. That's right. I've worked for friends that suddenly I didn't like them anymore just because they were telling me what to do and stuff. But that's why with Alex, I don't think ever really told me what to do, which is strange because most people, Owen has a different story. I have a unique story. I think partially, because I'm older than him. Mm-hmm. So he has a certain amount of like Southern Texas respect for that, I guess. But he also liked my videos from very early on. He almost immediately became a fan, and he immediately showed his poker face or showed his cards to me. I don't think he wanted to. And it was clear to me early on that he saw value in my video reports. And
sure.
The person in me, that young man who had that experience at 5 years old, who sees the world a certain way, I saw that immediately as an opportunity. So I was like, oh, okay, I have an opportunity with this employer. I have a lot of leeway.
Well, and
took advantage of
I've
that.
worked with Alex Jones. I mean, I nothing bad either. So I'm very
He
curious.
was actually the best boss experience I ever had. Never told me what to do. Never
Yeah.
even tried. He officially he said you have to do ads. Everyone had to do ads, a certain amount of ads, and
Well, that's
because
his business.
right, but I blew it off all the time. I did them only when I was inspired. It was
Yeah.
rare, and then when I would do them, he would say like "Oh, your ads are great when you do them." You know, he would throw in like that was
He's like
all
a
I
dad.
had. He would-
That's like a
that
dad
was-
comment.
He would just say, "Great job. I wish
Yeah.
you'd do more." You know.
Yeah, exactly.
And I'm like, that's my kind of boss. You know.
Right.
Currently,
Yeah.
I'm working for myself right now, which is the first time maybe
That's-
the second time I've done that. But that's the best
Yeah.
way to go. That's the best way to go in life. Should be every American's dream. I think should be to somehow try to carve your own little piece
Yeah.
out of all this mess. And
I
everything.
agree
But
with
anyways,
you.
what bothered me was, Alex said on air, he said that his whole family's been deep state for generations, and they're good deep state. And there's a good deep state, and there's a bad deep state. And then it started sounding like the QAnon story, which means basically this is way above your pay grade. Just trust the
Yeah.
plan and kick back. And I realized, well, I'm not gonna tell people that. And two, if that's true, which I can accept that that's true, I really can, because I really think that the picture is much bigger than most people see. I think.
Really? I think it's
so.
smaller.
I think we live.
I think it's so clear. Like,
We should talk about that because I'm.
Yeah,
always
let's.
That's one of my favorite things to do personally is just sort of pontificate and speculate and try to figure out what the hell's going on. And that's been my favorite
Yeah.
thing since I was a kid because like.
let's do
That's
it.
a weird experience to have, and then you want to be like, well, what the fuck?
Well, your experience is literally what is being shown in videos and emails and has been documented through this Epstein thing where
with the Epstein thing,
it's
well,
rituals, it's satanic. I mean, it sounds very similar.
Well, it's exactly
to,
it. It's basically like that's the world that I grew up sort of
avoiding.
just accepting that that's just the way that's Earth. Like
Yeah.
my experience on Earth was like from the first time seeing Mickey Mouse, or knowing that is the mask to cover up the savagery, the whatever you want to call it. Then the older I got, I tend to think that.
Wait, how did you correlate Mickey and the mask, though?
But,
You're spot on with that, but
because
how?
America is Murder Incorporated. The only difference between
Murder Inc., baby.
America and the Third Reich is the Third Reich had these incredible theatrics, black leather,
Giant flags,
silver, giant,
birds,
flames,
eagles.
like over the top theatrics to emblazon in your head. This is what fascism looks like. And then when they migrated over to the United States officially, because I think it started here in the first place, they put on the Mickey Mouse and the ties and the big smile, and that's. What do you mean fascist? What do you mean? I mean it's all nice, sweet sugar.
Yeah, but didn't Walt hate the? Wasn't he? So part of the anti-Jewish, anti-Zionist, or anti-Satanism? Because when you
that's all. It's all a psychological operation.
Because it almost seems like they flipped it.
And fighting each other. I think I don't see much of a difference between Zionism and Nazism at all. In fact, they worked together. They were the only political parties working together near the end of the World War II when the Nazis kicked out every other political party. They kept the Zionists there for some reason. A lot of people will try to explain their way through that, but there's no explanation other than if you're looking for truth in the external world, you will never, ever find it. Ever, ever.
No.
In my opinion. What you'll find is you'll peel back a layer and you'll have this mind blowing of like, oh my God. And then if you don't get lazy and wander off and you keep digging in that spot, you'll peel back another layer.
That's funny. Yeah.
And you'll just keep peeling it back and peeling it back and peeling it back and peeling it back until you either go crazy or you start going inside yourself where you're going to find truth. That's the only place you're going to find truth is going like within into the quantum realm or whatever you want to call it. I don't think there's really any words for it,
Well, and that's why I said that I think it's much more simple than as complicated as people think, because I have done, very similar. Like, we're more alike than I ever even imagined. But just in the mindset too. I've had traumas, I've had issues. Military was definitely not a nice thing. I had survivor's guilt, basically, is a thing, but I also got injured, so I've limped for many years and went through the VA and all that nonsense. And so I was conspiracy theory, right? Because I knew that when I came home, I knew that what they were showing on TV was not what was actually happening. So I knew that, and then I watched Loose Change, and then I was like, oh, it's money. And then you watch the Zeitgeist, right? And this is like 20, 30 years ago, right? And you watch the Zeitgeist, then you start going down this path, you start digging. You dig into finances, you dig into politics, you dig in, and when I've gotten to the core of it, and then, since my father was killed by remdesivir in the hospital, put down, I talked to him on one day, and then 2 days later he was done. And I found out after the fact it was remdesivir. I didn't even know, I didn't know any of that stuff. I learned it from watching you guys, Alex, and your reports and figuring it out. And
the craziest part of the whole thing,
Mykovics, and
was they were able to give bonuses to.
Yeah, they got paid to kill my dad. It's ridiculous.
That's just
they just
insane.
went home. Yeah. So, so I realized, and then I found God. I was gifted a Bible. I was actually reading a Rosicrucian's book, which I didn't realize, which it was very divinely written.
James is the Rosicrucian book.
What is it?
The King James Bible is a Rosicrucian book.
You know what? It is. Yeah. You're absolutely, you're spot on. So I started doing that. I said a prayer. My whole life changed. I had an experience, like a divine experience, lifted out of bed at 3:30 exactly in the morning. Room echoed. I heard a voice, said, God loves you. It echoed. I was thrown to the ground and I just bawled. And I could never, everything just changed from that moment. But what I've seen, and when I keep digging and digging past my financial conspiracies, past my 9/11 conspiracies, deeper and deeper, I get to the root. And the root is Cain and Abel. In my eyes, or Cain and Seth, because it's the blood. It's all about the blood libel. And when you go to, it's the Cain killed Abel.
You talking about sacrifice?
And blood talked to God. The blood wailed.
Because this is probably one of the biggest questions I have is why? And I've never heard a great explanation. Maybe I have, but what's the point of it, of sacrificing blood? Blood.
Well, because it's the blood. It's not about your heart that keeps you alive. It's not your brain. The heart and brain aren't referenced in biblical text. They're not referred to. It's always the blood. It's the blood of Jesus. It's the blood.
The blood is
the blood called to God. When Cain killed Abel, the blood was wailing, not the heart, not the mind. The blood was calling to Christ, or calling to God, and then God said, Cain is cursed, and no man or animal shall harm one hair on his head, and if they do, then they carry the curse. But the sons of Seth, because Abel is dead, when Adam and Eve had the third son, Seth, then that was the next bloodline, uncursed. So the blood libel is the cursed bloodline all the way back to Cain's, which is why the Rothschilds claim, we're the sons of was Nimrod, we're the and why King Charles says, hey, I'm the bloodline of Dracula.
They give a shit. They definitely care about
that because they're related. I think it comes back to the bloodlines. There's cursed bloodlines who have always then sacrificed blood, drinking blood, for ego, for power, for control.
I'm familiar with the story, but then it still takes me to the why.
Well, that's Satan at the heart of it. At the very end of it, it's just killing the thing closest to God and drinking the blood. If the blood of Christ saves you, then consuming the blood is of the devil, is the opposite, right? So
that actually makes sense. No, I mean this is kind of dark, but it's I can understand why a cannibal would want to eat children, because the same reason why a human vegetarian would want to eat sprouts, right? If you sprout a seed or a plant, the
a lot of nourishment
value in that sprout is high, immensely higher, So
and uncontaminated.
So if you're in it for nutritional sustenance value, and this is one of the reasons why, I don't get really angry that much about. I don't know what's going on, and if I don't know what's going on, I'm not going to allow myself to get worked up about it. For all I know, I tend to think we're on some type of a farm, which I think is almost exactly what you're describing. It's just using different words. Because when I say a farm, I don't necessarily mean we're being packaged and eaten like meat.
McDonald's?
I don't maybe well like, that is actually happening,
Maybe.
but I just mean like the same reason like we farm. For example, my diet mostly consists of today beef, cows.
Nice. Yeah.
I'm amazed at how healthy it is for me, and the more I look
Yep.
into it, the more I'm amazed. I think that's where the whole sacred cow comes from, is because it gave sustenance.
Interesting.
That's been inverted in modern times, but that's where that comes from. Anyways, that's a sacred, beautiful thing that we do. That we have a relationship with cows. That one cow could give me life for a year. And so for all I know, there's something like that going on here on Earth with us, and we're providing some type of sustenance to another child of God.
The
I
lizards?
have no idea.
Are we David Icke? Are we David Icke in it? We
No,
can.
I don't
I'm down
know.
with it.
I think the only place I differ with
It's
David
possible.
Icke is David Icke says we're in a trap, and he's not the only one
Yeah.
that says that. I think he gets that mostly from like the early Gnostic Christianity with the Yaldabaoth, or however you pronounce that, Sophia. But I see that story as more allegorical. I don't know. I don't know. Like I said, I don't know. I just know that all I know is that I have a job to do personally. My job is
Yeah.
to take as good is to steward this human being. I was born with a human being to ride through this adventure for about 100 years or less, if I'm lucky. And so my job is to steward over this human being that's going to be, from dust to dust. But while I have it, I have to show it respect and some love. And then if I can successfully do that, then I have to then show those other humans around me the same respect and love that I'm showing myself. And then just do my best to do that. And then I have personal goals that my heart drives me to. And I think those are important. I think I would guess we all have these things that our heart drives us to. And if we do, I certainly think that it's important for us to pursue those. And that's where freedom is important to me. Like, I can accept the fact that we live on a farm. I can accept the fact that we live in a very dark, savage place. It is what it is. I was born here. What am I going to do? Cry about it? I can accept that. But what I can't accept is some other creature impeding against the freedom, my freedom to pursue what my heart draws me to. So far, I've never had a problem with that. So far, I've been free to pursue my heart where my heart drives me. I've been free to walk the path where my conscience wants me to walk without any problem at all. And I don't necessarily expect that's going to change. I think there are certain rules that are played here. And to be honest, I've even looked at it from the worst case scenario of like evil just doing evil for the sake of evil, like what you were describing. Like, I can accept that, and I can accept that as part of God's will, because I believe our job is to, this is where many Christians will probably say I'm going to hell, but I believe that the purpose
Well,
of
they're not
Jesus
the judge.
Christ was to show us stupid people, because I'm stupid, a very simple, basic example. Here's a person who looks like you. He's got
100%.
10 feet. He's got 10 fingers. He's got 10 toes. He's got 2 eyes. Act like him. And it's really not that hard. It really isn't that hard at all. Basically, you could summarize it in many ways. And I think the Buddha was telling the same message. The basic idea is you have everything you need. You don't need to feed off of another person. You don't need to eat another person. You don't need to rape another person. You don't need to steal from another person. You don't need to manipulate from her. You don't need to do any of that. You have everything you need. You can actually become something greater than you are, and you can actually start healing other people, and helping other people, and becoming like Christ. I think I'm maybe lifetimes away from that, but that's the path that I'm on, and I think that's the clear path that's the clear path, I think, is love.
I agree.
It really is that simple. It's just love. And the reason why I think that these evildoers could be doing God's will in that sense is because if it were not for them, there would be no friction, and we'd probably just be sitting around eating food and screwing by the water,
That's why it's called faith, not knowing. Because if you knew, then you would do the right thing out of fear. But if you have faith, you're doing the right thing out of belief, right?
Yeah.
And I love what you just said about Jesus, because I've said this and I'll do real quick because I want to hear what you say. But it's like, if God is the ultimate Father and we are His children, in the beginning, he had his children and he told them what to do, and they didn't listen. He went away, they disobeyed him, and then, so he kicked them out and punished them. And then he wrote it down. Here's the 10 rules I don't want you to break. You have to do these 10 things, right? Don't kill, don't covet your neighbor's wife, this stuff. These are the 10 rules. So he wrote it down. So he told you, you failed. He wrote it down, then he told you and wrote it down, he failed. Then, just like you said, all right, so I wrote it down, told him, wrote it down. What do you do next for a child? You send an example. This is how you do it. I'm going to show you the example because first I told you, then I wrote it down. Now I'm going to show you. And that's why this next, and then we still are falling away, right? But the example has been set, right? So there, you have the rules, you know the rules, and you've been shown the way to walk, but you're all flawed, right? So he died because as a father, I know you're a child, you're always going to make a mistake. So I'm going to ultimately, as long as you follow this example, then I will take all the mistakes that you make and I will wash them away because I love you as a father. I forgive you if you follow this example and just follow his lead. Follow my eldest son's lead or my closest son, right?
And also I would add, letting you know that like you're going to die too, just like he died, and you're also going to live on after you die.
Right.
I don't think there is a game. I don't think God has some weird evil game show trick to like.
No, it's a test.
Die forever.
It's a test.
Forever. It's learning. We're here to learn how to love. We're here to learn how to wield power responsibly because we do have power. Like this realm seems to be crystallizing based on our thoughts and our beliefs and the things that we focus on the most. And this is a topic I'm sure many people are familiar with, even if they don't look into it, just because it's become very popular in like woo culture and stuff like that, manifesting your own life and stuff like that. But this is fundamental stuff. For example, like you made an app. I'm working on an app right now. That app wouldn't exist if I didn't start first thinking about the idea and stuff like that. And then that thought then crystallizes into actual action that starts making things happen. But nothing that exists in this physical world exists without that happening. Humans, a man and a woman, before the sex ever happens, there are thoughts that are happening in the consciousness of the woman and the consciousness of the man, and coming together. I mean, this is all very magical. We live in a very magical realm, and I think that's what we're learning how to handle here. And so it's just like when you're a kid, you learn, you don't touch the fire, you're going to burn yourself. You don't stick a fork into the electrical outlet and stuff like that. We're learning, the way I learn is the hard way. So I can accept that. I can accept that we're here to learn the hard way. And I can accept that there are avenues that you can choose to actually go the wrong way. I can accept that too, because I think that maybe the stakes are high and maybe it's very important that we learn these lessons.
Well, I agree. And that the end of that's why I think it's a test. True. The free will part. That's why, the devil, the Bible refers to the devil as the king of the earth, right? Yeah. He's given the ability to do what he wants.
Sorry to interrupt you, but
No, please. This is your interview. I'm talking too much. Go ahead.
I was in Russia for 6 months. I had the pleasure of being there for 6 months.
Yeah.
And I met a lot of very serious Orthodox Christian people there. And the topic of Christian nationalism came up quite a bit because in America, there's this thing called Christian nationalism where, and they seem to be probably pretty big fans of Russia or Russian Orthodoxy. But the Orthodox, I don't like organized religion. I don't. Probably because I was raised Catholic. And probably because that experience I had. But that's enough for me. And every other group experience I've had in life is something I don't particularly care for. I don't like crowds. I like George Carlin had this beautiful thing. He says, in the eyes of an individual is the beauty of God and all the beauty of the universe. But once people start clotting together and
grouping, blood clot.
But the Orthodox Christians said that the problem with Christian nationalism is you need to have the freedom to sin. Without the freedom to sin, there is no work to be done. There is like just what you said. You cannot develop your soul if you don't have that free will to do the wrong thing if you want. You have to be able to have that freedom.
And like you said, for something else, I think it's very important. And you referenced farming before. I agree with that in a way that, like, you know, if as a farmer you plant a lot of seeds or you raise cattle, right? And then if you have either a really angry animal, a violent animal, you automatically kill that animal. You never keep violent animals on the farm. You also, if you have a seed that doesn't fully sprout, or a seed that pollinates with another seed, or you get a cross that you don't really want, that's not of the genetics that you planted, or it doesn't grow at all, or it grows weak, you kind of pull those out, you throw them in the burn pile, and you use those ashes to spread on the crops that are actually growing and are performing and doing what you want them to do, or the livestock that are doing what you want them to do. And I think that when we look at the angels, they have a hierarchy. And they have like a rank system. You don't get a rank system from birth. You earn a rank system. Now, I can't speak for God, so I don't know why he gave them the rank system, but it would seem like they've earned something because they have a certain level of respect for each angel. And that's why Michael is like the ultimate feared one, because he's super powerful, because everyone knows. So if this is a test and we are given free will, maybe it's because whatever we have to do next it really requires God to know, hey, I can trust that guy. You know, like I can trust.
No, I agree completely. I think that's what I mean by like wielding the power responsibly. Like I think we do have the potential to be just like Jesus Christ in every way, and that with that comes a great deal of responsibility, obviously, and then you have to ask yourself, well, what's the purpose of having that power? And then you realize the adventure continues on. This is just one place. This is probably
level 2.
This is, and actually, you know, what's interesting too is like
level 3.
I like to look at. I'm very open-minded, and I like to look, as much as I'm not into organized religion, I also love them all. I like to look at all of them, and what I like to do is I like to look at what they're all saying that's the same. It's, to me, if you're going to look for the differences, then that means that you're a person who likes conflict and drama and you want war.
Well, it's probably easier to find difference than it is to find relation.
Easier. That's probably easier too. You're right.
Yeah.
But what's more interesting and fruitful, I think, is to find the similarities. And that is one thing that you're going to find in all of them is that there is that this is just the physical and this is an illusionary thing, and it is here for a reason. But the real world exists above us. Like we're newborns, basically. And it's also very much exactly the same as the UFO alien thing when you get into that. Like the only differences you're going to find between the hierarchy of the angels and the Galactic Council is words.
Yeah.
There's just words.
Yeah.
And if you're talking about
That's
the
funny.
same like ideology using different languages, then it's the same difference. You're using different words to talk about the same thing. I think it's the same thing. Because in that whole thing, it's the same thing. There are dimensions that are higher than us. You can call them
layers of heaven. The Bible refers to layers of heaven. That there are multiple layers. So you don't get just to the top. You don't just win the game right away. You have to earn it.
And at the very top is where we all coalesce into the same God. And this is where people get confused and they say that like Eastern religions are saying that we're all God. It is true, but it isn't true. We are fractals. I think in a more scientific way, you could say we are somehow mysterious.
Made in the image
of God. Made in the image of God. Exactly. The Bible says, everything says it.
Right.
And for some reason, one thing that I'm a big fan of Eastern religions, but one thing that they teach that I don't necessarily like, I think it's just a joke. I honestly think it is a joke. But in most Eastern religions, yoga, Hinduism, Buddhism, stuff like that, they say that the one all God was basically just bored and wanted to have play, and so it fractured itself into this thing that we call the universe, and that's all this is a game. I can respect that because I like to call it a game. Since I was a kid, I called it a game. But there is a part of me that
serious to be a game,
a little
though.
more meaning to that, you know.
Yeah. It's pretty serious to be a game out here, right? It seems that like
to be a game. I think that's just a joke. I think that's I think that's like an inside joke among all the Eastern, because it is ridiculous. That's a ridiculous thing to say, especially because these same traditions will teach you an expansively deep way of like understanding this whole body and this whole mind and everything. It's almost like the Yoga Sutras, it seems like a user manual that should have come with the body. Because it'll explain to you how to operate this body in a way where you can flow and you could operate at a high level. It's not a religion. It's necessary.
I've gone down a yoga path. I used to do a lot of it, and then I started researching about it, and there are some connections to yoga and some darkness in that, like the expression of the body and worship of Saturn has been related, and then Namaste is a direct algorithm or an anagram for me, Satan. I don't know if you've ever done that, but
because I don't like any group. Like I said, I don't like any.
Well, and then calling someone divine light, that's like blasphemy. If I'm saying that you're divine,
I'm okay with that. I think we're all divine.
We're allowed to disagree. I'm just pointing out what I've learned.
I don't think there's any such thing as anything that isn't divine. I think
very true. Very true.
There is not to me. This is one thing. Like I used to keep my beliefs to myself, and I'm actually going back. I'm working on getting back to that, even though I'm talking about it now.
Right after this interview.
But once I really started talking about it during the whole COVID era kind of thing, because it seemed it was being stirred up in America for people to talk about it, and so I kind of got into it. And what I realized is that some people believe and pray to a God that has opponents and adversaries, and that's not who I'm praying to. When I pray, and I've been praying, I've had a connection to God since my earliest memories. That's my earliest memory. Thank God. Because
you would have had to after that experience. Like
I think I had it before that experience. I think that's what got me through that experience was that comfort, that loving comfort. And I pray to that loving comfort, and that loving comfort has saved my ass several times. And I can tell you who that is. It's everything. There's nothing that exists that is outside of that presence. That's who I'm talking to. I'm not talking to some creature demigod that has opponents and like other gods that are trying to vie for power. That's not who I'm talking to. So I don't know, and I don't understand any of the, and a lot of people are. A lot of people are praying to like Yod Hey. I don't know. They have names for him and stuff, and it's like the relationship I have is much more based on faith. Like all I know is that the presence is there. I can feel it. And all I know is that when I do a trust fall and fall back and put my faith in it, I will land on my feet. And that's all I need to know. But as far as details, I have no clue. But I definitely know that there is no evil demon that exists in opposition. And if there is an evil demon that exists, and I think there is, it was a child of God. It was a creation of the same 100%. God that I love. And it's loved by the same God that I love. And it has work that I am glad I do not have to do. I am very grateful. I actually have a very good life in that my path is one of love. It is one of, it's very light. It's not heavy. It's a very light, gentle path of just trying to share things that I think are important, and me just trying to be a better person. And I believe that some of these people, like I don't get mad. You can get mad at a lot of these people saying they're traitors and they're sellouts, whatever like that. I think we all have our own path. And it's like, this is one of the reasons I'm open-minded to reincarnation, is because there are a lot of subjects that people don't seem to understand that to me are basic, fundamental, common knowledge. And I don't think it's because I'm a superior person. I think it's because I've been there, done that. That's what makes sense to my feeble mind, is that at one point, maybe I was raping and pillaging and feeding off of other people, and maybe I was engaged in some type of savagery. And I learned through that experience, which I believe it's unnatural for a human to not learn these things. I believe it's unnatural for a human to feed off of other humans. I think maybe I'm wrong. There are carrion birds, so I could be wrong. Maybe there are,
Yes, but we are separated from the animals. We are given dominion over the animal to not act animalistic.
And I think we're literally separate from the animal. Like I don't think that this human that's talking right now and making noise, this is not the greater part of who I am.
No, you're the little squid inside with the tentacles that goes down through the body and the eyeballs, right? The Mars attacks alien. You're that guy.
Who I am is that squid, exactly.
Yeah, you're
exactly
the squid.
right. That nervous system, that weird octopus.
Yeah, we're just borrowing the meat sickle, right, with a meat sack. We're just
and
we're
then
those
you gotta
squids.
go into the world. Then I'm not exactly that octopus either. I'm actually the thing inside of that octopus. That's like so it's like that's what I'm
Exactly.
saying. And that's the physical world. It's going to
That's
be a
funny.
mask inside of a mask inside of a mask inside of a mask.
It is. It's interesting you said that because I've seen as a child I was always drawn to like certain things, and then having children, I had a child that was very drawn to World War II planes. Like I could not figure it out, and it was like just fascinated with it, and like almost knew about them, and like it was like wow, for a time there I was like did something like it just seems so like where do you get that
It usually happens in their first 5 or 6 years. What you're talking about, it's very common. There's there's documentaries about it, and then it wears off
it wears off as if they forget,
as if that's where our memory wiping happens. It happens not just like a lot of people carry that memory with them.
Mm-hmm.
I actually did when I was going through the details of my own experience. I tried all different types of therapy, and one of the therapies involved past life regression, and the reason was pretty good, I thought. The reason was I'm about to regress you back into your childhood, and those memories could be very painful. And so to get you to more comfortable with the experience, we're going to start with a less painful experience, which will be past lives. There'll be like no pain involved. So it was just really a way of practicing.
Yeah.
And it was actually great because it was technically called hypnosis, but I was wide awake and conscious the entire time. It was not at all what I would have considered hypnosis. When I thought of hypnosis, I would have thought of being unconscious or not aware, but it was hyper consciousness. I was very conscious. It was just like guided meditation. But it was interesting. The 3 memories, we did 3 different past life regressions, and they did come back. They did taste and feel and smell like actual memories. It's very interesting. I mean, I'm very open-minded, but I'm also very skeptical. So if you were to ask me like what I believe in, the only thing I believe in is that there is this loving presence that I'm familiar with. That's it. Outside of that loving presence that some people call God, I don't really believe in anything.
We're all like Groot. When we die, we're just like re-stemmed as a little plant in the volume 2. Like we're just re-grooted, re-rooted.
I think we are until we pass the class.
Maybe,
pass the test, and
pass
then
the test.
Perhaps get to go on to be an angel, or whatever you want to call it, or a planet, or who knows. There is so many opportunities for growth and adventure, and to me, that's really the greatest thing there is growth. And I think it's a very valuable thing also to understand the relationship between suffering and growth. Not to be a glutton for punishment, but to appreciate your suffering and to know that it doesn't always last. And not only doesn't last, but if you take advantage of the opportunity of suffering to really find the silver lining and find the value, find the golden nugget, there always is a golden nugget. I've never not found a golden nugget, no matter how far I've fallen and no matter how much I've suffered. There's always something you will find where you'll be like, well, I learned this, And once you can find that golden nugget, then you're good. Then there's no regret then. Then you're learning every good thing out of every bad. You're taking every bad experience and you're turning it into a good experience, which is the magic that we can do.
If we could put that in a book, we'd be cajillionaires, because I feel that exact same thing. And I think the book is actually the Bible, because I also feel this sense of they're not even fears, but like little anxieties, but I always just turn back and go, hey, it's part of life. And I take everything that's hard, nothing good is easy, right? Everything comes out of pressure, whether it's building muscle, studying, reading, learning, whatever it is, it comes out of time and pressure, and it takes, persistence. And, and now I find myself in a place where even though the world is in chaos and the things that are coming out are so disturbing about some of these people, like part of me already knew that. But it's like, okay, well, that's them. What do I focus on in my life? Like, can I go stop that? I can't. I have to just grow what I can here. I have to build what I can here. Yeah.
Well, that's the most important thing right now, because I'll tell you what, like I have, because of my experiences and because of my imagination, I have a very rich imagination. I've never shied away from going down dark paths in my mind, you know. In fact,
Yeah.
when I was younger, I used to think that I was a bad person because I would think some of the shit I would think of. I
Same.
struggled with that for a long time. Like, Greg, you're an evil person. And then I just realized, well, no, you're a man, and all human. This is just part of being a man. Is you have this ability, you have these options, right? And so,
But you
the
have
reason
restraint.
I say that is because, like, I'm happy that I always wanted people to see the truth. I always wanted the veil to be pulled back because I always thought that would change things.
Yeah.
Now that it's
I know.
actually happening, I realize I'm a different man today. COVID really changed me. I have a lot more wisdom today than I once had. And honestly, I'm not all that sure that it's going to do any good whatsoever. In fact, I could see it having more effect on the bad than on the good because it's almost like they're letting you know if you want power and success. They're letting you know now that this isn't a rumor. This isn't a mystery. You can actually sell your soul to the devil. If you want, you just have to behave like the people in these files, and we'll find you. And I think that's true.
Yep.
I think that they will.
100%.
You will. The problem is that there's no. Who wants that? Because in order to play in that team, you're bending over and taking it up the ass. I'm sorry.
Every single one.
Every
Literally.
single one of them.
Literally. Not figuratively, everybody. Literally. They're literally.
Literally, maybe not literally.
I
but
mean,
if not
would you-
literally, it's worse. If not literally, you know what I'm saying? That's the.
Oh,
only
don't let me put words in Greg's mouth. I'm sorry. Not literally. He meant figuratively.
Well, maybe-
I mean literally. I truly think that that's part of it. Like,
Well, I think it is part. I mean, or you're on your knees for that person.
100%.
You know what I mean?
Bubba.
Like, that's.
I like Bill Clinton. Yeah, we know
That's
Bubba.
why I think the Bubba Trump story is probably true, because
Yeah.
that is like if you want to. It's not like, oh, when I'm dead, you can have my soul and then give me everything. No, it's,
You got to do it here.
It's like they don't want your soul. They want you.
No.
They want you to be their bitch, their slave.
That's right.
The whole P Diddy thing.
Yep.
That's just a small fraction of how the whole game is played. So yeah, you could, if that's what you want. Who wants that? That's like
For
me,
what?
a
Money?
living hell.
So you could be on a podcast? Like, so you can sell merch? I mean, for what? What are these people? I mean, at the end of the day, what do they get? Money?
Well, that's what I'm saying. That
Power?
when the body's dead, the body's dead. It's like it's all gone.
Yeah.
It's all gone. Personality gone. All of it. I don't think the soul lives on to tell anecdotal stories from COVID. You know, I think the soul lives on with a higher type of spiritual wisdom and lets go, and it doesn't carry any of this baggage with it. And, you know, all this
Right.
this crazy drama stuff. So what do we have to do here? What we have to do here, I think, is the most important stuff, which is kind of like what we've been skirting around the whole topic of, like, this place is a test. There's a reason for being here. I honestly think there is. I honestly think that it never ends. I don't think I've met anyone. I've met people that are claimed to be like masters, and other people think they're masters and stuff like that. I've never gotten that vibe. I don't think I've ever met a human that has perfected themselves. I don't think I've ever met anyone on the level of Christ. But I think that we all have the potential to get there, and I think there's work to do to get there. And I think all we need to get there is we have it. It's in our heart. Our heart is like our GPS guidance system. It will always keep us on the right path. If we're on the right path, we suffer less. In my opinion, from my experience, the suffering I've had is mostly when I've gotten off the path, whether because I was lost or because I wandered off on my own or just out of belligerence. I can be very belligerent with this. I have this deep faith with this presence I talk about, but I can also be very belligerent with this character. You know, like I've told it to go fuck itself many times, you know, like
Don't do that, Greg. Don't do that.
But well, the beautiful thing is it
No,
will
I know. I'm
punish
just
me.
kidding.
It will
I'm
never
just
punish
kidding.
me for that. It will never.
Right.
It'll just show more love and compassion. It really only punishes me when I deserve it. You know, and then even then it drags me through the suffering. It takes me right to the same place it was going to take me if I stayed on the path. It just cost me time and suffering.
Right.
And then
And
through
the
that
sooner
time-
you realize that, the faster you get back on the path.
That's exactly right. And
Yep.
the sooner you figure out this pattern, the more seriously you start to want to listen to your heart. What do I mean by your heart? I mean like your intuition. And what do I mean by that? There is multiple dimensions to ourself. Our ego mind, which seems to be more of a part of the human being than it does with our soul, has this voice that likes to be in charge, wants to be in charge. I liken it to like an undisciplined dog that you haven't trained yet. In Eastern traditions, they call it like a wild, drunken, schizophrenic monkey or something like that, which I think is more descriptive. Because without disciplining in it, that is what it is, and it will try to get you to listen to it. And if your heart speaks very softly and quietly, and so your intuition, your heart will tell you the right answer. It'll point you in the right direction. And without discipline, you can almost guarantee that your ego mind will overpower that voice, or try to at least, and do its very best to get you to do what it wants, even if it's the exact opposite, even if it's dangerous. Doesn't matter. It's like, no, screw that guy, do this. And you just have to practice discipline and practice discipline. It's not like the ego's a bad thing. And over time, the ego, just like a dog, when you train a dog, the dog will behave exactly how you want it to, and it'll be happy. Same thing with the ego. And this is where I believe action is extremely important. And this is where most of my focus has been on the Reese reports, is focusing on the experience and knowledge I have with this. And there's many different practices. Like some people say, okay, so you brought up yoga and stuff like that. Even Shivananda. Shivananda is probably the godfather of like real yoga. He was a 1940s era guy. Back in the 1940s, he was already warning about the devil is corrupting yoga. He was already describing everything that we're familiar with today that was happening back in the 40s. And yoga has been flipped upside down. I'm sure Christians would say the same thing about Christianity, and I'm sure Jews will say the same thing about Judaism. Everyone's got that story to tell. Everything's flipped up because that's the game. The game is to try to trick you. Why? Because we're not supposed to be tricked. Because we have to be wise as serpents and gentle as lambs, I think is the saying. I don't quote scripture, but I think it's something like that.
Well, and we know that despite ego, id, superego, despite outside things, the soul, whatever you think that it is connected to a conscience. And the conscience knows the difference between right and wrong, and it never goes away. Right. And you can see that now with these files. These people are willing to perhaps murder, rape, torture, and consume children, but they're so terrified that because their conscience knows still that even though they've gotten all this money and fame and power, what they did was wrong. And at the end of the day, it's right and wrong. It's love and fear, and they know that, and they're still panicking.
Well,
which shows you that, like,
a lot of these people have been involved in this since they were children. A lot of these people, I mean,
that's the other sad part too. Some don't even know better.
It's not a perversion thing. It's not even the blackmail thing is more as a silver lining, if you will, for the culture. What it really is fracturing that connection at an early age to create your own slave.
Right.
It's been going on for all
to remove the conscience. To remove the piece that holds on to the good, right?
It's going to lock it in a cage, basically.
And
we're kind of already born with it somewhat in a cage. Like we have to, without our discipline, we're not. When you say consciousness, that's exactly what I'm talking about when I use the word intuition.
I thought so. Yeah.
Or heart. That's exactly what I'm talking about.
Yep.
And that is already kind of quiet and subtle and passive, and it takes our discipline to focus our awareness on it and to listen to it. We could ignore it if we want to. And what this trauma-based mind control does is it gives you much less of a chance of being able to do that. It puts violence and trauma into the equation. And most of these victims end up killing themselves or end up totally messed up, or a life of drugs, and they end up suiciding accidentally from drugs or whatever. The few that manage to hang with it tend to survive by becoming the monster, by putting that consciousness in a little cage, keeping it there, and developing a violent altar that will then, and that's what they're doing. They're continuing the abuse to continue feeding that beast. But it's a horrible, horrible thing, and it's just all back to what we were talking about before of control. It's like that's the number one rule, in my opinion, that we're here to learn. It's not about a game of you get to win eternal life if you learn the rule. It's a game of like, look, you're going to stay in this hell until you figure it out. That's what I think's going on.
What is that saying? When you find yourself in hell, keep moving, or
that's
or
right.
When you find yourself,
if
keep
you find
going.
yourself in hell, keep moving. That's right.
Yeah, get out of there.
This place can be a hell. It can also be a heaven. It really depends on what we do and how our actions are, and not just our actions on our. I think what a lot of people need to remember is first and foremost your actions on your own person. Like, it's very common for us to treat our children or our animal or our pets better than we do our own self. It's very common for us to treat our partner maybe better than we do ourselves. I think that's one of the benefits of having a relationship in life, is that if there's other people, then you tend to do healthier things. Because if we're left alone, for some reason we have difficulty loving ourselves, and that's, I think, first and foremost, is
if you love yourself, respect yourself, you don't end up on your knees next to Bubba for money and loans and businesses, right? You're like, no, thank. Because I had that opportunity at Disney. I was an actor, and I was in the Disney studios, and Tim, I won't say his last name, but he's still there, head of. Yeah, he offered me a show on ABC and a career in Disney, and all I had to do was get on my knees for him, and I didn't, and it took me all I had to not knock his teeth out. But I had been in the Marines before that. I was not in Hollywood at age 18. I was there at 26. So I think my perspective was a lot different. But it's all self-respect. Well, man, this has been a great conversation. I don't want it to end, but I promise. I know you're a busy man, and I made a promise.
I had a great time too. I had a great time talking.
Yeah. What can you just wrap up? Maybe I'm going to give you the final thoughts. What you think people should hear, obviously, and then where people can find you, and then I'm going to just tell people that they can find you on our app now, because I'm super proud of that. But go ahead with the final thought and where people can find you, or
my
what do you think people need to know?
I love you. I love you. I think it's safe to say I love you all, even though I don't know you. That doesn't mean I like you all. I'll be honest. Most people, if I spend long enough time with them, I realize I don't really like this person. But I still love them. I think what love means more than anything it means that if I love you, it means that I really, truly want you to have the life that you're meant to have. I believe that you're here for a reason. I believe that God, or whatever you want to call this all and everything that we are existing within, has you here for a specific reason. And I think you know what that reason is. You might lie to yourself about it. You might not. You might be lost from it. You might not. But when I say I love you, it just means that I hope to see you on that path and be as full as you can be, and as all that you can be, and all that good stuff. And I think that's what we're here for. So, is it good to know the reality of where we live, that it's a ugly place? Yes, I think that is a good thing to know. I think it's good to live in reality. I think as far as it makes it easier to survive if you know that you're in a dangerous place. It makes it easier to thrive if you know that you should ignore all these strangers on the movies and the TVs and just focus on a power greater than yourself and yourself. Then you'll actually thrive, and then you can actually create things, and you can actually learn what you've come here to do. And so that's what I really think we're here to do. And that's really what the Reese Report's going to focus on more than ever now. I was all hot and heavy for a while that maybe there was going to be some type of worldwide uprising, like a Bob Marley event. I think that was me being naive. That was me. I have a big heart. I'm kind of a sweetheart. I'm kind of romantic. And that was that part of me. Having lived through COVID, having seen nurses murder their patients for $1,000 bonuses, I realize we live in a dark place. But just because we live in a dark place doesn't mean you can't have the time of your life, and doesn't mean that you cannot bring more light and love into this place, which is, I think, what our job is to do here. So anyways, that's it. You can come follow me at my Substack and live your best life. Thanks, guys.
Yeah. Well, Greg Reese, this has been awesome, man. You're I loved your videos before. This has been an amazing conversation. I really appreciate everything that you said. And now I'm honored to say that Greg Reese is at Galileo.com. We're featuring your content. So check us out at satnews123.com. You guys have heard me talk about that a whole lot, so I won't do it right here with Greg on. But I just want to say thank you, sir, and appreciate all you do. God bless you, and keep up the good work, man. You actually, whoever told you that you changed lives was right. You have, and I can attest to that, and you've saved a lot of people, and that's a really honorable thing. So keep up the good work.
Thank you, Brett.
All right. Thank you, Greg. All right, citizen. As always, you heard it first. We'll talk to you next time. Stay ready.